Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Kelsi Sheren Perspective. I know the stuff we've been talking about lately feels absolutely wild, but I promise you I've got an even crazier one for you today. Thank you for listening to us as long as you guys have. It has been 5 years the show has been going, and we have changed up our guest lineup and we have changed up what we talk about. So thank you for sticking with us. And for the new subscribers, thank you for being here. Today we're going to talk about something that feels even more crazy than the usual, but it's because, well, I guess this is just what's happening to the world now. Before we do that, can you guys go and subscribe to the platform of your choice, whichever one you listen to the show on? Can you go give us a follow or a subscribe? Just hit that button. And can you please do us a favor? Shares are free. Go share any of our clips on any of the platforms. We appreciate it. Check out our sponsors, Ketone IQ and Good Living. Both of them have amazing discount codes down in the bio for you. And we've been working with these guys for a long, long time for a reason. So let's jump right into it. Do you guys know, if you have seen the series or you've seen the show, you've probably heard about medical assistance in dying, i.e. euthanasia. There's something that's going on in Canada that, again, don't turn it off. Just hear me for a second. This is something different than just, the traditional MAID stuff. This one pertains to your taxpayer dollars. If you're in Canada and if you're in the United States, you have 11 states and one jurisdiction doing this, and they will continue. So let's get right into it now. Health Canada. You guys are doing something you shouldn't be doing. You guys are quietly funding CANMAP, their new MAID journal. So if you guys don't know what journals are, these are the medical journals, peer-reviewed papers that our incoming doctors, our researchers, people that build the scientific and medical community, they put their paper and their research into these medical journals. And this is what we base our next generation of medical science on. So basically what we've seen is a ton of other journals have come out against CANMAP and against the idea of MAID because it's a eugenics program, and it's not just a slippery slope, my friends. This is a drop off the face of the earth kind of situation here. We just saw that with a story in Australia where a man was using MAID kits, selling them, and he has killed over 20 people. We also have a case of that with Kenneth Law in Canada as well. But this one is wild because now, instead of having to argue back and fight against actual genuine peer-reviewed papers, CANMAP is creating their own biased journal. Yes, you heard me right. They're creating their own medical journal that will only promote death in a way that, well, I guess you can't argue against the science now, can you? So Health Canada is funding CANMAP's new journal. So what if I told you, though, that the Canadian government is quietly funding death? Not just healthcare anymore. We don't really have that. We just have death care. And most people, like I said, who have read my Substack or this information is not wild. But here's the thing. This time, I'm not talking just metaphorically. I'm not talking from a symbolistic perspective. I'm talking literally. Every single Canadian that is struggling to access the most basic needs of a family doctor, mental health care, and basic treatments, Health Canada is now funneling your taxpayer dollars that could be going into hospitals, into legislators that are going to actually uplift the healthcare programs that could actually allow hospitals to stay open full-time, rehire nurses that we fired unjustly. Instead, they're going to be funneling your taxpayer dollars into a project designed to normalize death, killing, and getting rid of the burdens. And almost nobody is talking about this. Everybody's too focused on the conflicts that Canada should never have been involved in anyway. And while you're distracted, my friends, Health Canada is quietly eroding the systems that is meant to support Canadians in their weakest moments. They opened the door to a dark predator that is CANMAP to the world and those who prey on the weak. And personally, I'm done sugarcoating it for everyone. Health Canada, let's say it very bluntly, is building a eugenics-filled machine, expanding and exploiting by the second. While you're all screaming about genocide and Jewish people controlling the world, you're distracted and you're unaware as your own country and North Americans fall victim to these pro-death cults. They're doing it while you're not paying attention. They're funneling your taxpayer dollars into a pro-death system. The Canadian Association of MAID Assessors and Providers, CANMAP, a group training doctors to administer MAID, i.e. training doctors to kill people, has just launched the Canadian Journal of MAID. The journal, funded strictly by Health Canada. I don't know how that isn't a conflict of interest, but hey, who am I, right? A government-backed academic platform built to influence doctors, shape policy, and shift cultural attitudes about death itself. And if you think this is just about patient's dignity, let's think again. Have you guys ever heard of the Canadian Blood Services? You know, you get the ad, hey, go donate the blood. We need to donate the blood. People need to give us their blood. Yeah, I hear you. We all need blood. I'm not discounting that. Although I don't want the blood that you guys now have, I'm not discounting that it's needed. So the organization managing our blood, our plasma, our stem cells, and our organs and tissue is now sponsoring MAID-related conferences. They did last year at the 2024 conference. So assisted death, government money, and organ procurement. Are you guys catching on yet? Because it's all connected, right? If that doesn't make you pause, and it should, please don't look away. Don't turn the podcast off. Just take a second, take a deep breath. I'll do one with you. Ready? Yeah, it's batshit crazy. You're not wrong. You're still there. We're still here with you. Because here's the thing. MAID initially in Canada and in other places was introduced as an extraordinary last resort measure to options reserved for the most extreme cases of suffering. I still disagree with it then, but that's my personal opinion. You guys can have yours. But that framing has been rewritten over and over and over, eroding any pathetic attempt at some form of safeguards. What once was exceptional is now being repositioned as ordinary and even preferable. And when Health Canada funds a journal dedicated to MAID, this is not a neutral research subject. It's a cultural project, a legitimate psyop. It builds an academic foundation designed to normalize assisted death, not as tragic necessity, but as a legitimate mainstream part of healthcare. Can you guys imagine attempting to justify killing someone before their natural death? I mean, really think about that for a second. Because this is how the cultural shift happens. They don't just arrive with warning sirens. They unfold slowly, methodically, step by step, slow dripping your mentality. Let me show you how. When the journal shapes the framing, the policy aligns then with the framing. So you've got Health Canada funding the CANMAP journal. So that's your journal is going to shape the framing. Now your policy, Health Canada and the Blood Services policy is now aligning with the framing that CANMAP just created. And then the medical education adopts the policy, i.e. the College of Physicians, any new medical doctors coming through the system. And then doctors are trained accordingly. That's how beliefs shift, almost without anyone noticing. And before long, death isn't marketed as dignity. Life stops being the default. And CANMAP sure as hell is not a neutral player. Oh, no. They are as corrupt as it gets, my friends. These people are not only the ones that are writing the journals, these are not only the ones that are promoting it, these are the ones that are the driving sales force behind the expansion of MAID in Canada. Right now, we have a bill that's going to be, when this episode comes out, is going to be going out for a vote, right? And so this bill is to stop MAID from expanding to the mentally ill. We need to flip 20 liberals. I highly doubt it will happen because the majority of the Liberal Party is corrupt, and we know this to be fact. So of course CANMAP has their hands in it, well, because CANMAP is given money by your taxpayer dollars through the Liberal government, and has been since 2016, when they've been lobbying now since 1994, when Dying with Dignity became a part of some nonprofit that apparently was supposed to save people, yet it was only designed to murder people. Here's the thing. CANMAP trains physicians, develops guidelines, runs conferences and products that materials that are going to frame assisted dying as an acceptable standard of care. Now, that's insane to me, because if you take a look at Dr. Stephanie Green, I use doctor always loosely around her, she's written an entire book about how many people she's killed. I mean, as a combat veteran, if I sat down and wrote a book about how many people I had killed, I'd be put in prison. Why? Because that's psychopathic. There's something wrong there. And yet she's paid tens of thousands of dollars to go across the globe and brag about how many people she's successfully killed. And somehow gotten away with it. That's insane to me. Here's the thing. These people are the ones that told the NIH to add the paralytic. Yes, those MAID kits you've heard me talk about in Jordan Peterson, trigonometry, Sam Tripoli, literally anyone that will listen to the conversation around what's happening in Canada, and not just Canada anymore, guys. Everywhere in the globe, this is being adopted as a new standard of care. So when you say, Kelsi, I'm an American listener, and you live in Canada, how does this apply to me? This applies to you because you have 10 states and 1 jurisdiction, and you're rapidly expanding. Because it's not just dying with dignity, my friends. You have a laundry list of American organizations that will be coming up next on our show, and we will be taking time to go through every single one of them and their level of corruption, manipulation, and telling people they should die instead of live while taking your American tax dollars. I sat down with the United States State Department, right hand to Donald Trump, and had a conversation about this. And I was told they had no clue it was even happening. Now, that to me is insane, because I like to think to myself that these people know a little bit more than what's going on. And here's the thing, starting to find out they don't. That is a crazy statement. So I'm optimistic that I'll continue to have meetings with them and continue to help Americans see what's happening under your guise of compassion and empathy. I brought this up to several of the United States Senate members, as well as individuals who are now running very large parts of the United States government. They're consciously aware. They watch the show. They know the posts. They're all hear about it, but no one is talking about it out loud. Very recently, Joe Rogan started to discuss it with Brendan Schwab and some of the other people on his podcast. But it is still yet to sit down and have a conversation with me about the extent in which America and the globe is running a eugenics program. Because it's not just 15,000, my friends. That's just one number, 1 year. We need to go all the way back and look at how many people Canada has murdered. This episode is brought to you by Ketone IQ. And if you guys have not seen me drinking it, it has been behind me. It has been everywhere. But ketones, I want to tell you a little bit more, because you ask all the time, are a powerful macronutrient, and they cross the blood-brain barrier. They supercharge your brain. And not only do they do that, I have reported and seen my own sharper focus and stronger endurance in next level performance. I use them before podcasts, before keynote speeches, and before I work daily with clients and when I get on my road bike. But this is not just that feeling good type ad. This is for real. This is backed by science. And in a placebo-controlled study, Ketone IQ users saw a 19% increase in sprint power, 13% in more peak power, and 10% less fatigue. And the ketone levels spiked 5 times in just 20 minutes. So when it comes to recovery, Ketone IQ improves blood flow, muscle oxygenation, and even boosts EPO, which is critical for your stamina and the bounce back factor. So if you guys are chasing that edge, physical or mental, Ketone IQ is the shortcut to getting into those zones. Do yourself a favor, go over to ketone.com and use the code Kelsi. You're going to save 30% off your next subscription. And I do promise you, ketone is no joke. Ketone fuels the flow. And I'm telling you, it is the best thing I have ever gotten into. So let's get a little further into this. If you guys not have heard about how these MAID kits work, there is a ton of what CANMAP likes to call mis and disinformation online. And then there's my interview with Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. This one is explosive. They think that they could have taken it down, and it didn't come down because it's the truth. And that's what happens when you tell the truth. So there's a laundry list I've attached in my Substack, which will put the clip right here, of what the actual MAID kits are made out of. And only Canada uses a paralytic. And let me tell you why, my friends. After a very lengthy conversation with one of the top anesthesiologists in this country, and almost soon to be head of his department, we went through this list drug by drug by drug. And let me tell you right now, my friends, the paralytic is given for a reason, because there's nothing peaceful or painless about this process. And ultimately, it ends in a pulmonary edemic state with your lungs, and you are drowned to death or death by waterboarding. And brilliant research by Dr. Joel Zivit himself the the critical care doctor out of Emory State, and also Canadian, but living in America, came up and found this research when he did the largest autopsy postmortem on lethal injection patients. Brilliant, brilliant man. Brilliant interview with him as well. That's been on the show here. Dr. Joel Zivit, if you guys want to go back and take a look at it. And if you want to see the exact numbers of the MAID kit, please go over to the Substack and go under the title of the episode, Health Canada is funding CANMAP's new MAID journal. It is right there. You guys can read it for yourself. A paralytic is included in the kits. Fun fact, the second kit is a completely different set of drugs. Now, tell me why. It's because not a single one of those drugs, my friends, is FDA approved for killing. Now, with the launch of Canadian Journal of MAID, CANMAP gains control over our research pipeline itself. And it is meaning, very simple, that any of the studies that they decide to amplify is going to be evidence-based, but they get the choice to silence anybody else that has a differing opinion. Who does that sound like, my friends? This is no longer open debate. It never really has been, and it's a curated consent. It's the illusion of choice while steering Canadians toward one conclusion. Assisted death is the only death, the only acceptable death, and it is now the norm. And with Health Canada, bankrolling CANMAP's influence, this isn't informing Canadians, it's teaching you what to believe. Let me say that again. Health Canada is going to bankroll CANMAP's influence on you, the people. It's not informing you. This is not called informed consent. This is teaching you what to believe. This is eugenics in sheep's clothing, period. Look what's already happened. Veterans are being offered MAID instead of treatment. People with disabilities are being told death is an option when supports are unavailable, but we can give billions of dollars to other countries. The poor and mentally ill are being steered toward assisted death because their suffering is too expensive to address, when often if you give them psilocybin in a quiet setting and the right integration and support network, movement, community, actual healthcare, oh my God, turns out people don't want to die anymore. And now this is where it gets dark, my friends. The Canadian Blood Services, the organization that is managing all of Canada's organs, all of our tissue, our plasma and blood, is sponsoring CANMAP conferences. That's right. Government funding, physician training, and now organ procurement. It is all deeply entangled. I've built out a spreadsheet for you guys to see how Health Canada funds CANMAPs and how this looks just from, a top down. Very simple. We'll pop it right here. At a minimum, this is going to create an optic nightmare, which obviously where there's smoke, there's for sure fire. And at worst, it raises disturbing questions about how policy-driven deaths align with supply-driven organ collection. This is something that I just spoke about with Alex Schattenberg on the podcast and what is happening with our organs. My next question is, so where is all of the Canadian consent in this? Because true informational consent demands absolute transparency. Every motive, every incentive, and every single risk laid bare. But that's not what's happening here. Can we really claim that Canadians are making free-informed choices when Health Canada now funds a pro-MAID, pro-death research and education platform? When CANMAP writes the ethical guidelines for doctors and organ collection, networks are financially aligned with the MAID expansion. This is not informed consent. This is called manufactured consent, my friends. This isn't about one journal or one organization. This is about a systemic shift. Health Canada funds the journal, pushing assisted dying deeper into our healthcare culture. CANMAP writes the rules, trains the physicians, and controls the narrative. Canadian Blood Services sponsors MAID-related events while managing organs and tissues. Vulnerable Canadians are already reporting feeling pressured continuously and daily to choose MAID because we are no longer offering real alternatives. This is not healthcare, guys. This is not preventative medicine. This is not actually helping you. This is policy-driven death dressed up as compassion. And when government funding, medical training, and organ procurement are all tied to the same agenda, this stops being about personal choice. Let's pretend it's never, ever, ever, ever been about personal choice. This is all about control, just like it always has been and always will be. This is about shaping how Canadians think about life and death and quietly steering every single one of you toward an outcome that benefits a system and in an institution and never ever its patients. So if Health Canada, CANMAP, and Canadian Blood Services are aligned in promoting MAID, we have to ask the question, are Canadians truly choosing assisted death? Here's the answer. It's simple. It's no. We're being guided toward it. We're being shepherded near it. Because once the cultural shift takes root, reversing it will be nearly impossible. This isn't about politics and politicians who want to tell sob stories to get votes so that they can one day be prime minister. No, it's not about you. I'm sorry, it's not. It's about ethics. It's about trust. And it's about whether we value life, autonomy, and dignity, or whether we are willing to trade them in for convenience or cost efficiency. Canadians have always deserved transparency in every aspect of our life. But it's clear without a budget this year, without support from Health Canada, without an actual government that works, this is not going to happen. Most importantly, Canadians deserve a healthcare system that protects life first. Or any healthcare at all at this point would be great. Because here's the thing. When death becomes policy, the real question is simple. Who protects life? We now know it's definitely not CANMAP. It's definitely not Health Canada. And it's definitely not the Canadian Blood Services. That's for damn sure. This is what I'm so just distraught about lately. The genuine audacity of the government to allow Health Canada to somehow write a journal all about killing people. And yet people like those organizations say that I'm mis and disinformation. I encourage them to go back and look at history, because right now they're aligning their names with some of the worst humans that have ever walked the face of the earth. The eugenicists, the Nazis, the ones that wanted to kill anyone and everyone that was a burden on the system. And I do promise you, you will be remembered alongside of them. So guys, this is always heavy, but it's important you stay informed. Stay informed for your life, for your health, for your family's health. And here's something that's coming up. If you're not aware, Canada is making it so that you are all mandatorily now, or ironically at the same time, organ donors unless you go and opt out. So if you don't want to give your organs to people like CANMAP and their crazy ass research and mentality, make sure you go and remove yourself from the list. I have removed myself from the list, and I will not be donating blood to people like this either. I know that's a hard one and maybe will ruffle some feathers, but welcome to the uncomfortable truth, my friends. I hope that you guys enjoy this one, and go check out all the sponsors again, Ketone IQ, Good Living, and all of the people that show up for us. Make sure you take time to hug a loved one, and make sure you take time to shake this one off. It is always uncomfortable, but these are the hard truths we have to discuss. And I will see you all next week.